This is Central Asia, an area formed by the union of Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, and Tajikistan, an area that by all means should have been a global superpower. For thousands of years, this region was the heart of the Silk Road. The Silk Road was a major trade route that connected China with Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and Western Europe. Central Asia was so important that in the 13th century, the most populated city in the world was Merv, which is in present-day Turkmenistan, right along this trade route. And it wasn't just Merv. Cities like Samarkand and Bukhara in Uzbekistan were world famous for their culture, art, and architecture. 800 years ago, Central Asia was a thriving powerhouse. That's why empires like the Chinese, Mongols, and Persians all fought to control it during their time. But today, that same Central Asia has become almost irrelevant to global economics. One of the biggest reasons for this decline is its geography, combined with a series of events over the past 100 years that have pushed this once great crossroads out of global relevance. And that's despite the fact that the region is full of natural resources. If you look at Central Asia's geography, it's completely landlocked, with no access to any major oceans. Sandwiched between three global powers, Russia, Iran, and China, it's constantly under their influence for strategic benefits. Now, geography plays a crucial role in the economic success of any country. It defines agricultural potential, access to trade routes, and defense against enemies. In Central Asia, around 60% of the land is desert. For instance, 70% of Turkmenistan is covered by the Karakum Desert, and only 20% of its land is suitable for agriculture. Similarly, Western Uzbekistan is mostly desert, making both these countries relatively poorer than their neighbour Kazakhstan, especially since the northern part of Kazakhstan is agriculturally fertile and produces wheat for the entire region. However, even Kazakhstan's southern and western regions are dry and infertile. Most of Central Asia's population lives in the southeast, near two major rivers. One is the Amu Derya and the other is the Sir Derya. These rivers flow into the Aral Sea, located at the border of Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. You might think that the land surrounding these rivers would be good for agriculture, but unfortunately that's not the case. That's because the south and east of Central Asia are dominated by the Altai mountain range, which extends from China through Mongolia, Central Asia, and Russia. These mountains leave no flat land for farming. Only about 20 to 25% of Central Asia's land is actually suitable for agriculture. That's why large parts of Kazakhstan, Western Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan remain sparsely populated. In contrast, Russia and Ukraine, just to the north, have 60 to 80% of their land fertile for agriculture. As a result, even today, nearly 50% of Central Asia's population lives in rural areas, cut off from the rest of the world. Most of them live off their livestock, drinking milk and eating meat for survival. But if you look at the map of Central Asia, you'll see the Aral Sea on its western border. So why don't the Central Asian countries take advantage of it? To understand that, we need to look at history. The people living in Central Asia today are ethnically Turks, and they migrated here around 4,000 years ago from Siberia, northern China, and East Asia. By the 6th century AD, they had established an empire stretching from the Black Sea to Mongolia. In the 7th and 8th centuries, the region between the Amu Derya and Sir Derya came under Muslim control, what we now call Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Kazakhstan. Then in the 13th and 14th centuries, the Mongols took over and ruled Central Asia for many years. By the 16th century, as Mongol power declined, the Russian and Chinese empires began competing for control of this region, and eventually, in 1917, the Soviet Union took over. The Soviets did something strategic right away. They divided the region's 5 major ethnic groups, Kazakh, Tajik, Turkmen, Uzbek, and Kyrgyz, into separate countries. This shows how well they understood the ground realities. They gave each group majority control in its own territory. America's biggest blunder in Afghanistan was that it was unaware of the country's ethnic realities. That's why, when it invaded Afghanistan in 2001 and overthrew the Taliban government, it handed control of the country to the Tajiks. Even though Tajiks make up only 30% of the Afghan population and primarily speak Farsi, while Pashtuns, who form 50% of the population, were largely sidelined. The result? The Afghan government couldn't maintain control, and within just 1 month of the US withdrawal, the Taliban regained power. The Soviets, meanwhile, not only divided Central Asia, but also initiated development. However, because of their communist ideology, they clashed with the local population, who were predominantly Muslim. Communism was deeply anti-religious, and for years, mosques and churches were shut down across Central Asia. This led to bloody conflicts between Soviet authorities and local people. Many Central Asians fled to Afghanistan, the Middle East, and the Indian subcontinent during this time. Eventually, the Soviets realized that this growing resentment could threaten their control, so they ramped up development and began allowing some religious freedom. Here's an interesting fact. Today, Central Asia is one of the world's largest cotton producers, and the credit goes to the Soviets. Soviet Union. But this cotton boom also came at a huge cost. To irrigate cotton fields, the Soviets built extensive canals from the Aral Sea to Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and Tajikistan. Cotton was then transported by rail to Russia and exported globally. But this massive canal system caused the Aral Sea to dry up. 100 years later, what was once the world's fourth largest lake has become a desert. The Soviet Union made vast profits from Central Asia's cotton exports over 40 to 50 years. But after the USSR collapsed in 1991, the region faced two major problems. First, decades of communist rule had destroyed their local industries, leaving them to rebuild from scratch. Second, their main water source, the Aral Sea, had almost completely dried up. As a result, these governments struggled to meet the needs of their people, and by the 1990s, many Central Asian countries descended into civil war and political chaos. Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan both suffered civil wars in the 90s, and in 2005, large-scale revolts broke out in Uzbekistan between locals and the government, a cycle that continues today. To make matters worse, Central Asia remains a pawn in the power struggles of global superpowers. Around 80% of the region's natural gas is exported to China and Russia through pipelines those countries built themselves. Because of this monopoly, they buy the gas at extremely low prices. And since the Russia-Ukraine war, both China and India have turned to Russian gas, further reducing global demand for Central Asian gas. So in summary, due to its geography, history, and geopolitical reality, Central Asia has become a puppet, used and discarded by global powers. Perhaps in the future, if Russia and China rise as dominant global powers, the Silk Road might once again become significant, and Central Asia could regain its status as a hub of trade and culture. But for now, that seems unlikely, at least not in the next 10 years. Geography plays more than 50% of the role in a country's economic success. A while ago, we made a video on America's geography and showed how it helped America become a global superpower. It's a must-watch video. Here are all the sources we consulted while making today's video. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in the next video with another interesting topic. Take care.